Thanks for tuning in to the Pacey Performance Podcast. So this afternoon, I am delighted to welcome Aaron Getz to the podcast. So welcome to the podcast, mate.
Appreciate you having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for fitting me in into the chaos. It sounds mayhem. Everyone I speak to is just like, it's crazy out there. So I really appreciate you giving up your time. Anyone that doesn't know who you are, Aaron, would you mind just giving us a little bit of an insight into you, your background, education-wise, and what you're currently doing?
Yeah, sure. Currently, associate director for football at Duke University. I've been here going on 9 years. It's my 9th off season here. So, I mean, I've had the pleasure of being here. I grew up in Northeast PA, about 20 minutes from Allentown, Pennsylvania. Small coal region town. What actually met my wife. She's from a town over, so we best friends ended up dating for a couple of years during high school, and we ended up meeting, and fate will have it, it brought us down here. So we have 3 beautiful daughters. Oldest one's kindergarten over in Chapel Hill. Middle one starts next year. So I'm a big family guy, I think, first and foremost. And yeah, I've been here with Coach Durfee and the crew for a long time, and it's been a pleasure. So I mean, I have a pretty traditional route. I played football at Plymouth State University.
We good?
I was a lot lighter then.
Are we all exactly the same?
Yeah. So I had the pleasure of coming out of high school. I actually got recruited through a buddy of mine. They found me, and it was really a blessing in disguise. That's kind of what drove me to doing this for a living. I had our offensive line coach. Him and I are still close today. Coach Paps. He's he taught me a lot. I think that's one of the things that pretty typical ex-football player. But I think what really kind of drove me was one, what the weight room can do for you. From a mentality standpoint, performance standpoint, all that stuff. But I think just the role of coach and what that can play in, a young guy's life. I think, what he did for me is something that I try to do now, obviously outside of numbers and tackles and touchdowns and all that stuff. But no, he was a pretty big reason, why I kind of took that. So I ended up, did 4 years at Plymouth State, and then, got the pleasure to meet Brandon O'Neill. So he was over at the time. He was at Dartmouth College over in Hanover. So from Plymouth to Hanover was like a 35-minute drive through the deep woods in New Hampshire. I met him probably 2 or 3 or 4 months left before I graduated, and this is what I want to do. Just trying to make some connections while I finished up school. So I met him, and he's like, well, we're actually looking for, interns to come over for the summer. What do you think? I was like, I jumped at it. So I was like, you know what? Let's just do this thing. My buddy, him and I, we played together. He's actually from a nearby town up there. So he let me crash on his couch for the summer. I just trekked it over and back through the woods in New Hampshire every day. And, appreciative of Coach Miller and Coach O'Neill. And, that was the start for me to like, all right, this is something I can see myself doing. Obviously the huge difference you can make, but just the mentorship, the guidance, just the relationship part, I think is something that really grabbed me. Besides the performance stuff, right? I think anybody who gets into this is, you get in it for similar reasons, and it's a lot of the one side of it yields the same results, right? Like it's all performance driven at the end of the day. We know that. But I think just being able to be something to somebody that you can build relationships with, and they can kind of lean on you. And, that's really what I liked of the strength coach part versus the football coach part. Cause I was at a crossroads, but once I did that internship, I was like, all right, I know what I want to do, so that was a big thing for me. So I did that for, probably 2.5 months. And then I ended up just, university back home, East Stroudsburg University, they had a deadline. It was like the end of, I want to say like April or March of that year, which was 2011. So I submitted all my stuff for grad school because I was like, you know what? It's an in-state university to me. Like, if anything, I'm going to be paying, not very much to get something I felt like I needed, at that time. So, lo and behold, fate had it. I was able to get in, and it ended up being a year program. So Dr. Davis and her staff were super grateful, and they let me come start in July. So I did the internship at Dartmouth, went to Brown, or did the Dartmouth, and then went to East Stroudsburg a couple months later, and then ended up leaving there early because Duke had an internship open up, and that was, again, my girlfriend at the time, who is my wife now. She moved down here to teach. The only school that ever called me back was Duke to do an internship, and I ended up being here about 2.5 months. Again, everything kind of lined up. I always use the word fate. Kind of a big word, but I mean, it's crazy. It all kind of worked out, and 2.5 months later, it hired me on. That's kind of the start, and I've been here ever since. And I left for maybe 7, 8, 9 months. Took a high school job. Just nothing wrong with it. Just honestly wasn't for me. At that time, and was able to come back here in a bigger capacity, and so that's all we know. So it's been really good, man. It's been again, the pillars of here are, they align really well with who I am, and again, it's Coach Cutcliffe and Coach Durfee, and they're all really good men first. So I think that's the biggest thing that was huge to me. So it all kind of lined up, and here we are. So
I always get the sense when I speak to guys who work in college over there in the States that this coach title is really pertinent for you guys, and you hold it really, really highly. And I mean, because people, like you say, Coach Durfee, we don't particularly do that over here, and it's quite nice to hear you say to be something to somebody or something to that effect. And I feel that's really strong that you guys have that real sense of purpose, especially, like I say, especially in the collegiate setting when you're looking after these young people, which is great. You can feel the passion.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, man, it's like, and again, this is the only place I've been, but again, people, you talk to people. I think some of the bad rap, and especially college football, you hear some, war stories, if you will, of interns and, different things like that. I mean, I think this whole thing of life is really about like people, right? I think it starts with people. I think again, maybe it's just me, but I think you want to try to surround yourself with, the program and the people that you want to model yourself after. I think that's a big thing of, obviously you're in this, like, again, I'm an ex-football guy. Like, I love to compete. I love challenge. Like, I guess to me, that's all standard. So like, I think it's as mightily important now. Like, I got 3 daughters, like, it just kind of stacks everything together to, that's your hope for them. And that's your hope, I think, for anybody, to surround yourself with people and purpose, right? I think without any of those things, like, I mean, what do you really have, right? I think the people and the purpose are huge, so it's been a really good match, and, I've been super grateful, and it's been super fun. It's been a fun ride so far, and this is the only place I've been, but it's, there's been nothing that like would make me want to kind of go another direction as of now, So
no, that's class. Thank you for that. It's really insightful to get that complete different perspective from what maybe we have over here, and it's really cool. Thanks for that. Like I said to you beforehand, and I sent some points over as I normally do with guests, and I'm really conscious that probably over the last, 6 or 7 years I've been doing this, like the intricacies of programming maybe gets lost. Maybe it's like not as sexy as maybe technology or load monitoring or anything like that. And I don't want to make it like play it down, but I think it's one thing that I'd really like to dive into with you today, and how you program and the intricacies of what goes on at Duke with your guys, if that's all right.
Yeah,
and
that'd be great.
One place I'd like to start, which might frame it quite nicely, is your philosophy and how you think about training and where everything else kind of jumps off from. So that'd be a nice place to start.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's funny you hear the word, and again, it's kind of one of those things where, like, you hear the word philosophy, you hear principles. I think it really, starts at the end from a programming standpoint, as far as like, what's your end goal? What are you trying to achieve? And I think, like, for us, we're trying to develop, right, the biggest, fastest, strongest, most durable player, right? We're trying to make you, at the end of the day, it's about making you a better player, right? And I think that's one of the things that, for me, is where it starts is, yeah, you're making a better player, but, like, from that point, how do you work back? I think you go from the end and work back to the start, and I think it's one of those things where I think you can get lost in, again, it's 2021. There's, you see new things every day. I think it's really programs about, like, your personal belief in your own thoughts. So whether you're a powerlifting guy, whether you're an Olympic lifting guy, I don't think it really matters. I think it's really your personal belief and how strongly you feel about it, right? And I think now with the technology part of it is I think it's great because it's the first time in ever that you're finally able to get a measurable tool that can measure what you're doing. I think a lot of past stuff is, you have your prescription, you have your, I want to be here, here, here. You have your different models of periodization. But I think now it finally gives you that grip of instant feedback of, you can go and get your data and go, did I hit my target? Right? Because ultimately your target is to make a better player. I don't think there's a right or wrong. Clearly, I mean, there's many different tools and modalities and different things of programming. I think it's really just taking what you believe in, fitting it in the system that you're in, and trying to find the best way to drive that. I don't think there's one right or wrong way. And I think early on, like for me, like I kind of used Olympic lifting early on as a player, and like I loved it. I think there's a lot of good like substance to it. And just trying to find, what fits, again, the stuff that I would fit offensive line wise with those guys are different than other guys. And I think you're just, again, your end goal, what's the needs, what are the wants, and just, being smart about it and using common sense.
Aaron, do you think we're too quick? You mentioned the like Olympic lifting guy or a certain periodization guy. Oh, I'm not a technology guy. Oh, I am a technology guy. Like, right. Are we too quick to kind of follow someone on social media? They're not. I respect them. I like what they do. I like how they come across. They hate Olympic lifting. Therefore, I'm not going to be an Olympic lifting guy. Like, I'm not going to be this. And polarizing. It's either like we like a yes or a no. We like a squat or a deadlift. We like one or the other, and we put ourselves in these little camps, which isolates us, but surrounds ourselves with people who think like us. It's quite easy for our industry to do that, isn't it? And I think people seem to enjoy doing that for some reason, maybe because we like the comfort of being in a hole, maybe.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think again, it's one of the, especially like, and I think it's one of these things that I think about for like young people entering the field, or like even myself, I've been almost 10 years in and, whatever. But I think it's one of those things that, yeah, I mean, I think that's the problem with a lot of social media personally. I mean, but that's a whole nother, debate or conversation, whatever you may have. I think it's really just, and I think using yourself, I guess I guess using yourself to find what works. I think early on that was something that I did, and it was very beneficial to right? Because you're looking for something that's going to drive adaptation, right? It's funny because the more I get into this, the less complicated I make it. I think early on, you have this huge vortex in your head of what it is, but at the end of the day, it really is stimulus and adaptation. I mean, no matter what it is. So it's one of those things where I don't think you could ever personally, just like us as individuals, you just can't lose your end goal. What you choose to program is not going to be much different from one sport to the next. I mean, they're all training is training is training. It's been that way for years and years and years. I mean, that's...
You're giving away the secret sauce here, Aaron. What are you doing?
I know. Well, I'm just... I don't know.
Killing us.
I know. I just think it's really finding out what... I think it's like anything else. You're going to fit a certain type of system, and hopefully you're driven to that system. And if not, you learn. I mean, that's the point of internships. You go, you learn. You're either going to put it on a list of, hey, I like this. Let me kind of dive down the trench in it. Or I'm not going to. You're going to put it on the back burner. I think because there's so much to this game. And I think it's just finding what you see works, what you read works, and obviously having that firsthand experience of, did it work or did it not? I think technology drives that now, and it's really good. I think for the first time ever, this field has something that's, you can measure. We get done, man, and I could go through and sift through the data with our systems, and you could see if we're trending up or we're trending down. That's to me the fun part of it now is okay, if you're going up, keep going. Right? If you're not, pull back. Reevaluate. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's any more complicated than that. I think it's, as far as movements and stuff, I think you need a blend. I know I got off on a tangent of used to be an Olympic lifting guy, but I just think you just take blends of powerlifting, blends of work capacity. I think you take different blends because they all yield different results, and you stack them in a manner that's going to give you the best training session, and you're just trying to stack days. You got to drive the training hard, but the other part of it's lifestyle, right? And I mean, that's I don't think your training only goes as far as your nutrition goes, as your lifestyle goes. You're never going to beat a poor lifestyle. That's 100% true. You may have better genetic makeup to overcompensate it to a point, but that car is eventually going to run out of gas. And I think I'm a big car guy. I love cars. So I think for me, that's kind of where I found my simplicity is the car needs a strong frame, the car needs a big motor, and the car needs fuel in the tank. I think that's, again, there's obviously layers to that, but I mean, kind of my premise of philosophy or principles of, I just think it's dependent on, again, time of year. What do you need? What don't you need? So.
I'd like to dive into the Olympic lifting stuff if we can, and just get a bit of an insight into maybe where your influence is. I mean, you've mentioned there that you lifted as an athlete, you used Olympic lifts as an athlete, and that was a big influence for you. But when it comes to programming and a little bit of detail around where it fits in the training year, maybe where it's manipulated for certain athletes, just to give listeners a bit of an insight into where your mind is when it comes to programming Olympic lifting before you put pen to paper or in modern times enter it on your iPad before these guys get in the gym.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the mindset is, I mean, I think the biggest benefit of Olympic lifting is obviously your power development, your rate of force development, which is, no matter what sport, is huge. I think to me, I think it's got to be an integral part of your training, whether you're pulling or you're catching. So I think just knowing what it does, and then knowing, again, your clientele, your athletes, like for me, I guess first thought is like, again, you have some bigger, longer guys, your offensive and defensive linemen, like they're going to live more in the snatch range, right? Pending any previous shoulder injuries, any of those variables. But I think you set those guys up for success doing that. And then I think it's just obviously all those benefits you get, but just knowing that you're trying to build, right, the biggest, strongest motor. But I think there's so many other qualities, the change of direction quality, again, joint motion, again, soft tissue stuff. I think you just get so much from that Olympic lifting cup, if you will, that it has to be important, right? I think for us, again, this is surely us and what we do here is, we are a developmental program. So again, the same approach with the programming, the same thing is going to apply to Olympic lifting, I think, and how we teach it and how we coach it is right. You work back from the finish position, and then you work yourself through, your approach, and it's going to be a blend of a top down to a bottom up. Again, it's just picking and choosing what movements are going to yield the highest power outputs and the highest rate of force development and all that stuff. And those are the ones you go with, because we're using it as a means to an end in the sense of we're truly hunting all those qualities, but it can't be at a deterrent of time, right? I think with training, whatever game you're in, I think time is a huge thing to where like you only have so much time. So you're picking and choosing your things within your progression, within your philosophy that you're going to go with, and again, through time, again, using technology and your coach's eye. I mean, you're going to look at something and go, all right, this looks pretty dang good. Or you're not. You're going to look at it and go, oh, this isn't very good. Either how do I fix it or how do I move on?
Which is a big complaint of people's not implementing Olympic lifting because of the time taken to coach and I suppose how intensive it is, especially early on. What would your reaction to someone saying that be?
I mean, everyone's got their own personal beliefs. No, I mean, again, I think that kind of just goes back to my first point is and that's fine. There's other ways to do it, but at the end of the day, what you get out of it, I don't think can be replaced. Again, especially for football, obviously there's that ability to display force, but also absorb force. So I think that's a big thing as far as like, again, offensive, defensive lineman. I work mostly with offensive, defensive line. I'm a big person guy. So like for those guys in the trenches, like they need that, and I think you can still get done. And I've seen it firsthand here. You can get done. You can be an Olympic-based program, if you will, and teach it and coach it and do it really well as part of your training plan. I mean, that I know no different. So my reaction would be, again, that's on the person, if you will. But I mean, you could do it and do it really well, coach it, teach it. It's like anything. You got to have a plan, right? You're not going to go into something without a plan. You have a plan, you can execute and get it done.
So the catch and the force absorption, as you mentioned there, is super important for you guys. That you see that as a key reason for implementing the full lift.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's again, you work your way through the progression from quarter squat catch to full catch. Yeah, I mean, I guess going off of research, literature, firsthand experience, yes, I think you do, because you get all those qualities of the absorption, the application, again, the changing of direction. Like, there's a lot of athleticism involved in it. And I think there's guys, again, bigger, longer guys, that puts them in positions to, again, if you get into those, right, because at the end of the day, what it's about is your body's ability to get into a position, withstand it, and pop back out of it or come back out of it, right? That's, if you will, in the simplest form to me is injury prevention. So why would you not do that? Why would you not take the time? Because you're still able to teach. You're still able to do all these things, and you can follow it up with heavy squatting, heavy pulling, heavy pressing, heavy chin-ups. To me, the nervous system is what it is. So it's all those things that you're getting from Olympic lifting that's going to drive the development of an athlete.
Would there be any times in the year, Aaron, that you would emphasize or you would include the catch versus not?
Yeah, I think it's just time and place. And obviously, guys being fully healthy, not healthy, there's, in season, we'll sometimes catch, we sometimes won't. We play a game, we play Saturday, right? Because that's the ultimate end goal of it all. I mean, I think that you can't get lost in that. I mean, that's why I kind of paraphrased it with the ultimate goal is to make the best football player, right? The best athlete, whatever you want to put on it, right? So I think that's the end goal, and I think you just got to be smart and understand when to push, when to pull. I think all of this stuff is push and pull, right? You play Saturday, you play a big physical team. If you got some shoulders and elbows and wrists, well, you're going to come back the next day, probably not power clean, probably not hang clean. All right, let's pull. You're still getting those same benefits. You can work your way through the week. And again, the nice thing about it is you're able to have conversations with these kids. Again, we have a really good relationship with Sports Med. We know all this stuff coming in the door. So when we talk about this stuff, the day after the games, we already know what our plan is. Here's if we got ABC, great. Here's our ABC, and just being able to match and stack different things is I don't think you're ever set to one plan in this in this whole thing.
As we found out over last year,
right? To say you're this and this, you always got to have a plan B and a plan C, and just kind of be ready to adapt and shift gears. And I think just kind of always having your tools ready to do what you need to do, if that makes sense.
One phrase that you use, and you reiterated it a couple of times, was we're a developmental program, which is quite nice to hear, and it's quite easy. I suppose it's quite easy to forget that you're dealing with 18-year-old guys and girls, and in your instance, guys.
Right.
These are young people. And I think it just dawned on me that, and I wrote it down to make sure I followed up on that, because it's easy to get carried away and forget that these are young, these are young people.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the curse of social media, if you will.
Of course.
Right. I think from a, it's funny because I was just having this conversation. Sorry, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a.
Go.
I was having a conversation with one of our guys today, and I was like, what people forget about all this, back to the stimulus and the adaptation. You need time. You need time. You need, repetitions. You need volume. That's the only way your body adapts. That's the only way to drive, successful training, or what would deem successful. Again, that's always up for interpretation as well, but you need time. I without time, you're on a mouse wheel, if you will. And I think that gets lost because everybody wants it now, here, right away. And
the microwave version.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. One of the, Coach O'Neill told me this early on, probably that had to be obviously over 10 years ago. Holy smokes. He told me it's you're putting something in a slow cooker, right? And I think people get lost in that is anything in a slow cooker or anything smoked is much better than the microwave. And social media, whatever it is, you lose that. 2021, I want it now. I want it here. I want it then. It's so I guess I'm probably boring because I try to keep it simple, but you need time. You need time. You need work. You need repetitions under the barbell, whether it's Olympic, squatting, pulling. You need that. You need that volume.
So what do you do if you have an athlete that's not competent with Olympic lifts or has a past injury pathology that doesn't enable them to do the Olympic lifts or the derivatives? Where do you go? What's your kind of right turn from there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's one of those things where it goes into the wants versus needs, and then you just need to find a good way that I like to do it is, if they can't, is just start do some compound stuff to where you're doing some strength work with some plyos or some throws, or again something that's driving the central nervous system, driving that system of power development. I think is one of those things where it's not very often, but again, if you get to that point where like, hey, this guy just can't do it, you're trying to coach him and take him through your levels of progressions, like, then it's just one of those things where, all right, what's the next best thing for him? I think that's obviously where, again, the other part of it lies. It's not what's best for us and what fits us. It's, how do we get this kid to as close to the target as possible if we don't have this tool, So I think just finding different ways to train them if you're not able to, if there's injury or whatever that may be, just compounding some stuff, some throws, again, some high-speed get-offs, just anything that's power-driven in nature, sleds, just finding what works for that guy.
Mm-hmm. So next topic of conversation around unilateral versus bilateral, and that kind of, again, polarized debate. You got people like Mike Boyle who are very much in the unilateral camp, although like it's quite obvious that he does program bilateral as well, but favors unilateral work. And I'm just wanting to get your thoughts around that. Does it change throughout the year? Does it change with certain athletes that you work with versus others? What's your thinking here?
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things. Again, it's just another tool. Obviously, you can go to research and look at different things. I think a lot of it too, though, is like, what are the needs of I guess my first thought to the single leg versus double leg work is, you have a lot more of your guys on the outside, they need a good bit of single leg work, right? That's what they do. Whether your safeties, cornerbacks, wideouts, even your combo skill guys, you need, and even to extent your offensive and defensive line. Like, I think, again, just a good sound training principle is you always, time permitting, time of year. I think all that goes into it. I think from just a training standpoint, it's good to have both. And then as you get general to more specific, you got to do what's best for them and what their needs are. I don't, it may fry a lot of people. I personally don't care what I like when it comes to like programming, what I'm picking from my athletes. Like, what again, if you have their best interests at heart, which you should, your personal thought shouldn't even be in the equation. Right? You have your philosophy. We but again, that's our job, to find the best possible solution for the question you're asking. I think that's what data is all about, right? I think it's one of those things where you get what you get, and I think, I just actually, it's funny because I ended up coming in crossing paths with Adam Virgil. Sorry, yeah. So I just came, a couple weeks ago we came across, paths and stuff because we have so much, like we have 5 different platforms of data. So I've been in contact with him, and he said it so simply and so so gracefully. He's like, well, what questions are you trying to answer? And I'm like, like that to me just kind of like struck me. And it's super simple, but like, what questions are you trying to answer? What adaptations are you trying to yield with your training? Then pick the best possible one that's going to, A, keep them safe, right? That's first and foremost, do no harm. But B, it's going to drive performance. Drive them running faster, jumping higher, feeling better. I think that's huge.
So on the tech piece,
I'm not a big bilateral, unilateral squat guy. And traditionally I've been a big bilateral squat guy. I know there's research. I love pretty much all of Mike Boyle's stuff. I think he's one of the guys early on that I really got a hold of, and super simple, easy to digest.
Likewise, yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of his stuff you read, you're like, damn, like that's really simple. So like that for me is, I love a lot of his stuff, and I love, again, talking to you for 35 minutes. I try to keep it as simple as possible, because I think there's so much that you could overwhelm yourself.
100%.
It's like one of those things where like you try to do it all, you don't get good at anything. That sort of thing. So yeah, I'm not in either camp. I just think you try to find what works best. What works best for us and our defensive backs and our offensive linemen is going to be different than other teams. But at the end of the day, like, you're trying to make them better athletes. All those other qualities. So I guess that would be my answer to your initial question.
No, that's cool. Thank you for that. I mean, you mentioned tech a couple of times, and in gym technology, maybe velocity-based training, and I'm going to bring this into the conversation, but also flip your question that you spoke to Adam about. What questions are you trying to answer, and why did you turn to VBT to be able to answer them? Because clearly there was an issue somewhere, or a gap that needs to be plugged, and you thought VBT could do that. I'd like to dive into that little area.
Yeah. So here, we're super fortunate. We have our GPS stuff. We have heart rate. We have force deck, so NordBoard, jump plates, and we also through Perch, obviously. That's kind of where it started for us in here. So that was big for us as far as like, so it's I guess kind of to play a little bit of history with, and Jeremy hit on it because I ended up listening to your podcast with him.
Yeah.
So Coach Durfee, who's our director, him and Coach Moffitt are really good friends. They're good close. So it's he brought it up in that conversation. It's those trees are connected. So we got in with Perch, right along with LSU when they did. And for us, it's been huge. I guess I'll start with that one, especially with time of year. So I think for us, we got in with Perch, and this is going into our second off season with them. And again, it's really driven our operation to another level. I think it's been one of the best things for us, just as far as, right, everybody squats, presses, everyone does all the same stuff, right? And I think now you have the ability to, A, get instant feedback on the floor, B, your compliance is through the roof, and C, you're able to go back and just really see what you've done. You have your initial prescription. You have, again, whatever model you're on, you can see exactly where you are. And then from there, can you push more? Can you pull more? Do you have to go back? Do you have to go harder? So, I mean, I think it's really, the analogy I like to use is you're able to get even closer to that red line than I think we've ever had before. So that's been really big for us. And I know VBT gets thrown around. And again, there's a lot of really good stuff. But like for us personally, it's been one of those things where you're able, like we've been able to build out norms and build out different things, to really map out everything we've done. Whether it's off season or whether it's in season, I think it just makes everything better. And I think it allows, conversations, especially with your guys, of, hey, this is where we want to live today. Well, we know if, right, you have that gap of, here's your set parameter. You may be a little bit higher, you may be a little bit lower. I mean, we'll know right away, like, hey, you're feeling pretty good. Great. Well, let's push the gas a little more. I think it's just, you got guys that aren't feeling so good. All right, well, let's pull back a little bit. And it's not necessarily, it has to be intensity. It could be volume. But again, you're able to manipulate it right on the floor because you see it. You're able to set thresholds with movements of, set 4, 5, 6. This is where we want to live. And it creates that drive. It creates, those guys see, hey, this is where I want to be as we work through the sets. And here's my goal. Are we driving strength? Are we driving power? Whatever that number is, they know. Like, it's already set, and we can see it in a bright color if they missed it or not, and it takes a lot of, it puts a lot of ownership on them. I think that's important because it forces them to own their craft. I think the training piece is a piece of the craft, right? You got your football craft, you got your training craft, and that just drives that, and I think the more you can do that and live closer to that red line, you're going to come out better, whether you're after a game, going into a game. And I think it's just really kind of driven our operation another level. As cliche as that is.
No, absolutely. No, it's great. I mean, one thing that Jeremy said when I spoke to him was VBT may be seen as something that prevents you from overtraining, but actually it helps us massively to not undertrain.
Yeah.
So I think that was quite a nice way to frame it. We're there to push the guys, not hold them back, and that allows us to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's spot on because again, I would say you always tend to lean on the conservative side, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to this stuff, because you want to do no harm first. Really in hindsight, before all that, like, we walked the same path they did. We had tendos, we have 18 racks, and we had 18 tendos on the floor. We went through the same stuff with lines breaking and taking months to get fixed. And at the end of the day, you weren't collecting anything. You saw the last thing you remember is the fourth or fifth last rep of a set of each movement. You'd be like, oh yeah, we were close, great. But like, I mean, how close really were you?
Mm-hmm.
So I use the word evolution, right? I think that's a big part of life. I think it's a big part of training. I think the evolution part that, I think people need to, because when it first came out, I was like, I kind of got how I feel about it. And it's one of those things where I was like, all right, like, how do you continue to evolve as a coach? As a teacher, right? That's all we are. We're teaching people how to do things that are going to help them reach their goals. So how do you dive in? And that's been, one thing for myself personally is technology is going to make this thing a lot better before it makes it a lot worse. And I think that's something that for us has been huge, so we've been able to, we're just coming out of spring. So we're able to, the GPS stuff with the heart rate stuff. And again, all the perch stuff's to your external loads. All the GPS stuff, you get some external load, but you also get some internal loads. And I think that's important because it really just paints a picture of what you did. So if you're coupling, hey, this session was really hard. All right, well, we come in, this is where we need to live, and you base it off of, again, you can kind of go twofold with it. You base it off percentage, you can go off velocity. Because yes, it is velocity-based systems, velocity-based training, but really you're monitoring every lift. Every big lift we monitor. We build out norms. That's been the fun thing for me is I've done more with Excel in the last, year than I've had my whole life. But it's the evolution piece that for us, here's our program. When guys come in, we can evaluate it without testing them. And it doesn't make us a soft program. It makes us a smart program. What I mean?
Sorry to interrupt, Aaron. Is that a perception that people may have because you don't test? You could be seen as a soft program.
I mean, I don't know. I think this. Okay. I think training in college football gets a rap, a rapport. Yep. Especially for you. I mean, you're on the outside, so I'm sure have seen it and heard it and felt it. I mean, I'm on the inside. Mm-hmm. Just because people are now starting to use science. Like, science is what drives this thing, right? We all claim to be ex-phys, ex-science people, but, like, you need to put your, I don't want to say pride, but if you're into development and you want to develop people, then you got to use it, or at least try. Because if you're not, you're already saying out loud, like, hey, this doesn't work. Which is, how could you not choose something that gives you instant feedback, instant results, and allows you to instantly plan for your next session and not give it a shot? You know what I mean? Like, that's and again, I'm about as prideful as they get in this world, but, like, I mean, that's the science of it, man. That's the fun part of it is, hey, we squatted heavy yesterday. Great. How are we today? We could squat back-to-back heavy days. Mm-hmm. You know, I think the more you stack those days that's development, right? It's physical development. So I think that's kind of it's been really big for us in the weight room. Again, the GPS stuff's been really good. We've just been, again, like I said, I've been able to kind of build out different things for Coach Durfee and the staff, and just, you know, kind of build our sports science program from the bottom. You know, which for us, I mean, it's no secret we're not getting 4 or 5 star guys. That's okay. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of what makes it fun here is you have to actually coach. You know, you have to actually think, you have to actually program, you have to actually execute. And I don't want that to sound wrong by any means, but it's just one of those things that I could sometimes get overlooked.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Because we all do the same stuff, right? Everyone squats, bench. You know, honestly, we all do.
Of course.
You know,
killing us here, Aaron. Absolutely killing us.
I'm
only joking. It's great. It's great. It's great to hear.
It gets. You know, I just get wound up because, like, especially in the States, we all do the same stuff. Mm-hmm. Nobody does anything different. You know, and I think that's the whole, again, folded in problem with social media and this and that. And, you know, you see, again, these professional players, like, I always think, and it's kind of where I've evolved to, is like, if these guys that are super athletes, like, if they're actually starting to, like, do it right. Like, for me, a big, like, kind of a person I've really started to look to was Matt Ray at Alabama, and just trying to follow him. And, you know, he's been somebody that, like, man, he's getting freaking Hemis and Ferraris, and he's using science, you know, which is it's unheard of, you know, to use it, you know, and it's not what's been done over the years, right? It's evolution. And I'm sorry I keep coming back to that word, but, like, you know, if you're not evolving, you're not continually trying to build your philosophy and build your toolbox, then, like, you know, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. You know, because it's all going to become outdated. You know, it's not being trendy. It's just using technology to your advantage. You know, I think that's one thing that we've really done. And, you know, the kids enjoy it. You know, like, they enjoy training next to each other, and, hey, I'm going to squat this or press this or pull this faster than you. I mean, that's what you want, man.
How good's that? Yeah.
You want ownership. I mean, ownership's the name of the game. You know, anything led and owned by players is going to be better than led by us or led by coach. Like, it's been around for hundreds of years with college athletics, man. Like, they own it. That's what you hunt. That's going to get you a winning formula.
Yeah.
So,
one more question.
Sure.
One thing that seems to have had a real resurgence in people's interest is isometric training, and I'm just wondering if that fits anywhere in your program at certain times of the year. It doesn't. You leave it for certain athletes. I'm just again, where does it fit in the programming?
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, it's more of a beginning of the year thing. Again, I think I love the Cal Dietz stuff that he's come out with. I mean, I think that's, again, the 2-2-2. I think that's really good. Again, because it's qualities. It's the qualities you're hunting, but it's, you know, he says it best. You know, he starts the book with, it's stimulus. You need stimulus. Like, I think it's a hard line to walk of how close can you get to the red line with stimulus. I think that's obviously the key. I think using technology to, again, kind of steer the boat, if you will, I think is huge. But yeah, I think isometric stuff and eccentric stuff, I think are great. I think it's just, again, what they're going to drive. And I think you just got to be smart with, again, time of year, where do you feel is best suited? What literature shows you where it's best, right? It's usually beginning of the year, your strength building block. I think from there it's kind of judging off what your team needs. There's been some years that, we did a little bit of it. We've done a lot of it different years, other years. So I think it's just, again, it just kind of going back to that overall first question is, what's your target? What are you trying to hit? And, what do they need? I think what are the needs is a big thing. And it's funny, this data stuff with training and all this, the 2021 evolution of all this stuff. It's like the questions are still the same simple questions. We're just now getting more tools to answer those questions, which I think is awesome. Mm-hmm. I think it validates what we do. I think it gives us merit as a profession. And I don't want that to sound wrong, because there's been a lot of people that have done some really, really, really super things. But I think it's our job is, I'm only 9 years into this thing, and, I think it's our job to continue to drive, this profession, to drive what it is we do. We're not just a bunch of meatheads, and I think that's part of the perception and rap that, like, I don't care for. Not to say that I'm soft by any means, but again, it's just that rapport of perception, and I think the more we can continue to show, our athletes first, our coaches second, administrators third, like, hey, this is what we do, and here's all the merit and data and everything you could ever want, to back us up. It makes us bulletproof, whether it's, with whatever that may be. Again, we can go down another trench, but I just think there's more to it than just, I like to train, this is what I do, so my athletes are going to do that. I think it's a little more, again, as simple as I am, I think there's a little more complexity to, what we do.
I've written that down. I like that quote. Not just a bunch of meatheads. And I think people like Matt are doing a great job. And I'm sure there's loads of Matts out there who are doing it underground and not maybe talking about it as much, which is absolutely fine. But I think people like him are probably emphasizing that quote that you just said.
Yeah,
which is fantastic.
I think it's great because I think he's challenging status quo, right? And I like that. I'm a big fan. And he's at one of the best, obviously, football institutions, if you will, but he does things based off of science. They don't just, hey, we're going to squat 500 today just because. Like, I respect that, and I think that's good stuff that he's using the tools that are out there to drive performance, which in return, to be honest with you, drives buy-in. Like I can say firsthand here, the guys I work with trust me more. Let's not get it twisted. They're 18 to 22-year-old guys. They want to lift heavy every single day, but that's not performance. That's your YMCA. That's personal stuff, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if we're in the business of relationships and people and performance, there's no better thing you can have than your guys trust you. I had a guy a couple weeks ago, hey, this is where I want to be. All right, we're on track. Trust the plan. You hear trust the process all the time, right? But it's finally putting some merit to it, and they trust me. And they should. They should. It goes without saying, they should, because they know you have your best interests at heart. That's what this is all about. And I think it's just the tools and the tricks and the trades of, getting buy-in, and buy-in is going to drive a better relationship, and it's going to drive higher performance. I think that's where it starts. You could sit and have a high performance podcast for hours and hours and hours because there's so much there is. But at the end of the day, it's relationships. It's your ability to be authentic, and if they know you have your best interest at heart, they're going to come out swinging. I think that's where programming and philosophy and it all starts. Because it goes back to what I said. Like, everyone does the same stuff. Especially, like, we don't do anything different than other programs. They don't do anything different than we do. How do we need buy-in, right? This is just another way to get it. We need our guys to trust us. Hey, this is the road we're going to take. Are we going to hit some kinks in the road? Hell yeah, we are. No question about it. But again, them falling back with your relationship going, all right, I had a really crappy day. You may have a really good day, and a couple days later, something else. I mean, it's the whole relationship thing and trusting everything, and I think that's huge. I mean, that's 1,000%. That's it.
I think that's a superb place to finish up, because that's where we started and that's where we're going to finish. So thank you. Man. Yeah, appreciate that. Aaron, I know you said you're not a massive social media guy. We kind of.
I'm not.
Is there anywhere people can get in touch with you? Should they have any questions?
Biggest thing is my email. So it's my first name, Aaron, AARON.Getz @duke.edu.
Yep.
That would be the best place. Just because I'm not. I mean, I have those profiles, and it is what it is. I'm still working to get to that part of technology, if you will.
Yeah, no, that's all good. That's all good. Well, if people have got any questions, fire you an email, and I'm guessing they can find that email online as well, can't they?
It's all online, so
yep.
it's pretty simple. So.
Yep. Perfect. Superb, mate. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for giving up your time. I know, like I said right at the start, it's been chaotic for you, so I appreciate you carving out an hour and 15 minutes by the time we got going and got recording. So I appreciate it. But I'm going to let you go. You stick around. We'll have a little chat afterwards. But officially, thank you very much for your time. And
sounds good, man. Yeah, I appreciate your time. That was fun, man.
Pleasure.
Take care.
Good man. Speak soon.
Yes, sir.